So like you said, talking about Pope Francis, man, I'll tell you what, you guys are kind of locked up, you're kind of in a bubble. I get that, but just believe me when I tell you it's an exciting time to be Catholic in America. Because people are really like, it kind of blew my mind how much people freaked out about it. Like, I'm talking for 3 straight days, CNN, Fox News, whatever you were watching, like all it was Pope Francis. You know, which is cool when you think about it. You know, the Catholic Church. The great thing about the Catholic Church is like 2 billion Christians in the world, right? Half of them are Catholic. We're definitely like in giving. I would always say that, especially when Pope Francis came about. I think we're at like a low point as a church. So it's our responsibility to come out to bring the church back up out of that. You know, and just like I told you guys before, every time one person gets holier, the church gets holier. Because it has one more holy person. You know what I'm saying? The better you get, the better we get, the better the church gets. And that's why these things are so important. How are we going to do that? How are we going to go about doing that, right? So we went over the rehearsals already. The update from last week. We talked about the fears, we talked about trust. Now I wrote down trust into 2 different things. We talked about inward trust and outward trust. So inward trust is what we're going to talk about today. Outward trust is do I trust God and do I trust other people? But the inward trust is, does God trust me? Do I trust myself and do other people trust me? All right, so we talked about what we're going to start with today, and David and Goliath. One of my favorite stories, so I get really excited, you know. And I really love like recanting Bible stories, so I'm going to do it with a little bit of humor and a little bit of like contemporary language, so don't think that I'm being impious or disrespectful, but I just think it's easier to remember stories when I talk that way. Okay? David and Goliath. David was a little young warrior out, you know, shepherding his sheep. So he was a shepherd, right? So he protected his flock. He was the son of Jesse. He's out in Bethlehem, he's guarding the sheep, okay? There's a war going on between the Philistines and the Israelites. The Israelites are, David is an Israelite, you know, it's God's chosen people. So what happened was they were in a gridlock position. We could go into like the tactics of why they were gridlocked, but the 2 armies would neither would attack the other because they were in such strong position that they knew that it was a suicide mission for both sides. So they're fixed. So what they do is the Philistines send their biggest, they got this giant dude, Goliath, and he goes down and he says, look, you guys sent one guy to fight me. If I beat him, then you guys will be our slaves. If he beats me, then we'll be your slaves, right? So there's a lot riding on this. Meanwhile, back in Bethlehem, you know, David's doing his thing, chilling, petting sheep, and you know, whatever shepherds do, you know, tending the flock, you know what I'm saying? Just grazing fields and all this. So then his dad's like, yo, your brothers are out with the army. I need you to go and bring them this food and take some food from their commander. I guess he's trying to get the good hookup, you know what I'm saying? We all know what a good connection's like, right? It's always good to have a solid connection. So he's like, go, you know, do the commander these cheeses and whatever, you know, let's try to get on his good side. So David's like, yeah, I got you, you know what I'm saying? No problem, Dad. So David runs ahead, goes to the army. He's hearing this guy yell about, you know, where's your God? Where's your God? Like, send the man down to fight me. And David's like, whoa, what? He's like, what's going on over here? You know, he's very interested. Talks to his brothers, he talks to a lot of people around, and they explain the situation. Then David himself, I think this is really important, because obviously, if somebody came to you and they said, you know, you're like, Americans, send one guy to fight me, and if we lose, we'll be your slaves, and you lose, you'll be our slaves. That's a big deal, right? And there's kind of a lot riding on that. I mean, I don't know how much you studied like slavery in life, but it's generally frowned upon, you know? It's not a way that people really like to live. So that's a big deal. So David hears this. There's a point in 1 Samuel 17 where it said, it's my favorite part. It's actually my 3rd favorite part, but we need to get into that. It's 4 words. And it says, and David heard him. David heard him. So David knew what was riding on this. David didn't come up and think that, you know, this was just going to be like some like warm up to the battle. David knew what was the line, like what was leaning on this, right? So David's like, well, I want him to go fight him. He's puzzled. He doesn't understand. David's so confident in God that he doesn't understand why nobody would go fight this Philistine, because in his mind there's no doubt that the Israelites would win. But the Israelites, whoever they were saying. So David keeps asking. His brother eventually gets mad at him and is like, shut up, go away. Like, I know the evil in your heart when you came here. You only came here because you wanted to come here. You didn't come here to help us out or whatever, you know. David's like, what are you so mad about? He doesn't understand. So David really doesn't understand. But word gets up to Saul, to the king, King Saul, the first king of Israel, that David was willing to go fight dude. So David, Saul calls for David. He says, what's up, man? So you really want to go fight this guy? He's like, well, you're just a child. You're just a kid. He wasn't a child, but he was like, he's just a youth. And he says, and look at Goliath. This guy's been fighting since he was in his youth. This is a grown man. He's been fighting since he was your age. And now you just want to go out in your first battle, be against a super guy? Which, you know, if you lose, we're all going to have to be their slave. Like, this is a big deal. And David, this is one of my favorite quotes in the Bible. David looks at Saul and says, you know what, man? He says, when I tend my father's sheep, and a lion or a bear comes and snatches one out of my herd, he says, I go after it, and I strike it. And if it doesn't die, I catch it by its beard, and I strike it down and kill it. And he says, the same God that delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from this evil Philistine. And there's that trust we talked about, right? There's that trust. And David trusted in himself, believes in himself, and said, I can go, I can do this. I believe that I can do this. I believe that God, the same God that delivered me from that, is going to deliver me through this. And he goes, he's like, I want to fight that. So Saul's like, here, take this armor. I need you to take this, this, and this. He gives him his armor. And David's, I mean, he's not scrawny maybe, but he's like, this is really weighing me down. I don't think I'm going to take this. Take some shield, take some armor off. He's like, I don't need all that. Thank you, though. Thanks, but no thanks. Which I don't encourage us doing, you know what I'm saying? So don't get over to Floyd and be like, I don't need this IOTV, I'm done, you know what I'm saying? David took the armor off. That's not what I'm encouraging, but it's just a part of the story, okay? It's a part of the story. So, David goes and he fights him, kills him. Then David does some of the most OG stuff, some of the most gangster stuff I think happens in the Bible. Now, David knocks the man out with the sling. We all know about the slingshot and the rock, right? Hits Goliath. Passes out. Then David goes and takes Goliath, cuts his head off with his own sword. I don't know. I just think it's kind of gangster. I think it's pretty cool. So he cuts Goliath's head off with his own sword, right? And then he just stands there. And what I imagine is one of the greatest, like I told you so, moments in human history. You know what I'm saying? But as he's standing over this body screaming, and then they go and they push the Philistines far, far out of the battle area. So I think we're going to examine those few questions, what led David to trust God, or to believe that God trusted in him? Out of all these people, because think about it, David was a shepherd, David was a shepherd, comes here, and now he's amongst all these soldiers. And why would David think that God's trusting him to go out and handle this mission? When so much is relying on it, so much weight on this, And I think that David's experiences with the lion and the bear is that key. That's the secret to why he trusted that God would put this in his hands. And I think that we have to recognize that within ourselves as well. It's like the lions and bears that we kill. So basic training is a good example of that for you guys, This might be your first lion or bear that you have to kill on your way to the Goliath that's going to be your life. We all have a purpose. We talked about that very long ago. I don't know how many people remember that one. Purpose and identity, and how God created each and every one of us for something. And that something is probably going to be something very difficult and very great. But that we weren't made for comfort, we were made for greatness. And just like David realized, just like we talk about that fear of suffering, is that we weren't made for comfort. So we're going to have to suffer and go through difficulty and go through trouble and really force ourselves to change and be willing to give ourselves over to God and transform our lives so that we can fulfill that shoe and we can kill our own Goliath. But maybe you're looking at me and you're like, yo, Frank, I don't think I've ever killed any lions, any bears. I don't know what you're talking about. And this is where I need you to open your eyes more and think about your life. Think about things that you've overcome. Think about things that you've gone through. Think about things that you're currently going through, currently overcoming. Missing your family, the daily tasks like we talked about, being smoked, and the pain that you go through. That mental challenge all the time. There's other things other than like physical lions and bears that you have to conquer through your soul and through your emotions and through mental strength and power. How you doing, Father? Good. And these are your lions and your bears. And then when you go over them and you rely on God's strength and God's grace to get you through these things, and the next time you come up to this task that you think is impossible, when you come up to the task that nobody believes in you to be able to do it, you'll be able to trust in yourself and trust in God's grace and His stewardship and His belief in you, that you'll be able to handle whatever is placed in front of you. Because that's the biggest thing, and that's what we talked about. We're all called to walk on the water, right? We went over about the Peter walking on water. David and Goliath. Look, I'm telling you guys stories of impossibility. We have minds of impossibility. That's one of our problems as people, right? Is that we limit God through thinking, this is impossible. I can never do that. I can never do this. I can never walk on water. I can never do this or that. And I'm not telling you, like I said, I'm not telling you to take your arm off. I'm not telling you to go try to walk in the deep end of the ocean or the deep end of the pool if you can't swim. That's not what I'm encouraging you to do. What I'm encouraging you to do is stop looking at life through glasses of impossibility. Stop limiting God and stop acting like He can't do these things for you and through you. Because there's so many times I hear people, when I'm doing my evangelization thing or whatever it is, they'll be like, oh, that guy will never change. You know, we have this word of never. I can never change. I can never be like that. I can never pray like Mother Teresa did. I can never love the way St. John Paul II did. I can never, you know, the life Pope Francis is going on too, like that's cute and it's encouraging, but I can never live my life that way. That's not true. When you do that, you limit yourself and you limit God. And the reason why David was so confident going into this battle is because he knew God in a way that we didn't. Or that we don't when we speak that way. So the question today is, who do you think, like, who is God to you? And what do you think of him? Because if I thought that God was somebody that was weak or that he didn't come through, you know, he's a God that doesn't care for us, that doesn't love us, that doesn't show mercy, then yeah, I'm going to talk like that, right? I'm going to say, this God can never change. I'm going to say, I can never live my life that way. But that's not who God is. You got to know who God is so that we can trust him. Just like you learn to trust him with one another as you get to know each other better, spend more time together, right? But like I talked about when we talked about Mass, and when we set God up for this failure all the time. We set God up for failure. Why? Because we don't give him a chance to get to know us. We don't give him a chance so we can get to know him. And then we don't trust him and don't believe him and make all these different like negative assumptions about him and who he is. So I want to tell this, one of my favorite stories. So Matthew Kelly, I talk about him all the time, one of my favorite Catholic authors, right? Tells the story of this God, right? So they had this very nice dinner with all these like big waves back like in the Renaissance period. Okay? And there's always like really important people here. And they had this famous actor. He was like famous throughout all the area. He could recite the Hamlet and all this stuff, and just like he was really good. He was a very famous actor. So they asked at the end of the meal for the actor to stand up and recite some poems and some scripts from some plays and stuff like that to entertain the people. So they asked the guy to get up, and he's more than happy to do it, you know, because he's talented, he knows it. So he gets up and he starts reciting stuff, okay? And everybody's loving it. They're laughing, they're having a good time, they're just enjoying this guy and his talent. Then there's a priest that's there, and he raises his hand and he says, hey, would you recite Psalm 23? Does everybody know Psalm 23, 23rd Psalm? Everybody's a little familiar with it? Everybody has it. It's like one of the most tattooed and like popular Bible verses. I think John 3:16, Philippians 4:13, and then like Psalm 23 are the three most well known. So anyway, so he asks him, he says, hey, will you recite Psalm 23? He gets up and he does this beautiful, like, dramatic rendition of Psalm 23, you know? But before he does it, he says to the priest, he says, I'll recite it. He says, yes, Father, absolutely, anything for you. He says, I'll recite the psalm, but only if you promise that you'll recite it afterwards as well. Right? And the priest is like, all right, I can do that. You know, because he wants to hear the guy say it. So he gives this big, beautiful rendition. Loud applause after the actor goes and does his version of the song, right? So the humble priest stands up, you know, and he says he just goes into it. So Psalm 23 goes like this. So the priest stands up and says, the Lord is my shepherd. There is nothing I shall want. He leads me beside still waters. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He restores my soul. He leads me down a path of righteousness for his name's sake. And even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall have no fear. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You present a table for me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever. And at the end of the priest going through this, there was silence, and people in tears, and people were crying. And people wondered, you know, like, there was this loud applause after the actor goes through it, but after the priest, like, people's heart were moved, and they're like, what's the difference? Like, what separated the two things? And the difference is this, that the actor knew the song, but the priest knew the shepherd. You understand what I'm saying? The actor knew the song, the actor knew the words, but the priest knew the shepherd, what the song was about. And that's Psalm 23 is written by David. David knew the shepherd. David knew what it meant to be a shepherd, because he was one. He knew that meant to be a protector, to be the one that loves the sheep. And just like Jesus comes and says, I am the good shepherd. My sheep know me and I know them. They hear my voice and they follow me. God is the good shepherd, and God loves us, and God wants what's best for us. And the more that we allow ourselves to get to know him, the more we're willing to bow down and be one of the sheep, to be in the flock and follow him, the more you'll be reconfirmed in that. But this is why it's called faith, because maybe you don't know that yet. For me, I've had a lot of experience where I've had God come through for me in big ways. And I've gotten to feel him and know him and understand how much he loves me, how forgiving he is. I know that, but it takes that step of faith. Maybe you're still at the beginning of your faith, and you're like, I don't know, man, like maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, or you just completely think he doesn't, but you've never given him a chance to do it. This is why it's called faith, gentlemen, because you have to be able to take that step and believe somebody like me, believe the Bible, trust in us, that what we're telling you is true. I tell you guys all the time that my life is not easier now than it was then. When I was living my life in sin and hooking up with whatever girl I wanted to hook up with and getting drunk all the time and doing drugs, whatever I was feeling. Living my life any sort of way. I didn't care about anybody's feelings but my own. I didn't care about what other people thought, how my words made them feel. I didn't care about succeeding. I didn't care about school. I didn't care about anything. Had a bad relationship with my family. Was tearing people apart. Really had a bad impact on a lot of people's lives. And I'm telling you that my life was easier then than it is now. That I try to be more cognizant of those things. And I try to give my life over to God each and every day and live the life that he wants me to live. But the joy and peace that I feel now, even though my life is more difficult, exceeds that. It's 100-fold. It's 100 times what the joy, happiness, and peace that I got to feel back when I was living a sinful life. So that's what it's all about. Beginning to know the shepherd, right? That's how we're going to know that God trusts in us. By having that personal relationship with him, which comes through prayer, study of the scriptures, and fixing our lives, and allowing God to transform us so we can live like he wants us to live. That's when we'll know God trusts us. It's through that experience that will happen to him if we take that step. And that's what also allows you to trust in yourself. If you know that God trusts you, right? Why would you not trust yourself? So if you tell me, like, when I come up here today, do you think God believes you to be able to give a talk today? And I'd be like, yes, I do think so. I think that he wants me to do it. Then why would I not believe in myself to be able to do it? We know that God wants certain things to happen. This is just like when I have guys come to me and they're just like, I can never save sex in marriage. I can never wait. I can never do it. And I'm like, if we think that God wants us to do that, why would we think that it's impossible that he would give us the grace to be able to do it? You know what I'm saying? We do that all the time with different things. If God wants us to do something, if we believe that this is what Jesus is teaching us and asking us to do, why would he not give us the grace and strength to do it? That means God setting us up for failure, right? And that's not something he's in the business of. He would not create us to just joyfully laugh at every time that we fall. That's not what he's here for. He's here for the opposite, to rejoice with us when we succeed. So we can believe in ourselves in that way. But the last one we've got to hit on is of inward trust is, do other people trust me? And this comes back to that week we talked about. I don't know if anybody was here for it because you guys switch out so much. But the week we talked about confession and the examination of conscience. To think, all right, we have to ask ourselves these hard questions, right? Know thyself. Socrates, like one of my favorite quotes of all time. You know, getting to know yourself. There's no better way to get to know yourself than, you're a creation. There's no, God created you for a reason. Nobody's going to know you better in and out than he does. The Creator, he created you for a purpose. He understands you more than you understand yourself. But to get to know yourself, you got to ask these hard questions and think. I want you guys to reflect on that this week. Reflect on it today. Do other people trust you? It could be girls. It could be your parents. We've all done things to break people's trust before. I think that's undoubtedly true. I know I've done a lot of things that would break people's trust in me. But do other people trust you? And should they? Because maybe they do, maybe they don't. There's a lot of ways you can lose people's trust for things that you haven't done. Things that were unfair to you. But should people honestly trust you? Are you the guy, and this is important, as now you're stepping in, you're going to be a private in the Army. We got future platoon leaders of Cap Scouts here. I'm going to be the future platoon leader of the infantry, just like most of the guys here. We got armor guys here as well. Are you guys the dude that I can trust, that even if I'm not around you, I can trust and believe that you're doing the right thing? Integrity, exactly. Army value, right? Can people believe that even when they're not watching you, when they're not around, that you're going to do the right thing? Because we all have to be leaders at some point in our lives. We're all called to some type of leadership. And that's what leadership is. Leadership is being what right looks like. That's a strong part of leadership, right? It's because other people are going to look to you for the example. If they look to you and you're setting a bad one, then the whole organization can go down. Does anybody here know the Army's definition of leadership? I know one of you does. Or you better at least. Yo, West Point, you got the Army's definition of leadership for me or no?
I can come up with one, but not.
You don't know the Army one? Can you throw that at me?
The process of influencing others by providing purpose, direction, and motivation in order to accomplish something. Pretty close.
Competition for the organization, right? That's good. So did everybody hear that or no? So he said the process of influencing others by providing purpose, direction, and motivation while operating to accomplish the mission and improve the organization. So the organization doesn't improve if you're not doing those things, right? If you're not setting the example of what right looks like. So eventually you're going to have kids, have a wife. People are going to look up to you. Maybe you're going to raise in the ranks. And you're going to be in this leadership position. And I want you to ask yourself, because a lot of people, we get to this thing, right? You come to basic training, you're like, this sergeant, like, he sucks. This guy sucks. I just want to be different. I just want to make things different. Maybe you'll feel that in your heart as you're going through this. I just want to get here, and I'm going to make this better. You have that desire to do that. And I want you to have that same desire that you have to improve the Army and the basic training experience. I want you to have that for the church. We talk about the church being kind of a low point. Pope Francis is an excited time to be Catholic. We have that same responsibility. Is that you see these people that came to you. A lot of you guys were raised Catholic. I wasn't. I converted at 13. I went to Catholic school though, so I know a lot of the struggles that young Catholics go through. And you see these people telling you, you know, however they tried to teach you the faith, which for a lot of us was poor, I think. Like I talked about them just harping rules, and never talking about the relationship. And for me, it was just like I have in my experience in the Army where I said, you know what, I want this to be different for some people. I want to make this different. I want to make the faith appealing. I want to be able to provide purpose, direction, and motivation to accomplish the mission, because the church has a mission, right? Does everybody know that the church has a mission? Jesus says it at the end before he ascends into heaven. He says, "Go out to all the ends of the world, the ends of the earth, ends of the world, and spread the good news." That's our mission. To spread the good news, spread the gospel, and Jesus' message to other people. And I wanted to improve the organization. So we all have this task of doing those things. But can I trust you to do that? Should God trust you to do that? And how are you living your life in a way that's going to prepare you to one day be entrusted with such great things? Because we're all, you know that God trusts us by this. When in Genesis 1, right? God creates Adam. He says he puts him in dominion over everything in the earth. Go out and subdue the earth and multiply, right? You are man. You are Adam. We are the descendants of Adam. The world is ours. We're the ones supposed to care for it, take care of it, take care of each other, take care of the young and the weak and the helpless in our society. You can look around and it's evident that God entrusts certain things into your hands because you're stewards, right? That's what stewards means. It means to have something placed in your hands and to take good care of it. And just like I talked about last week, we are also ambassadors. When I talk about that's a strong word. I said for myself, you know, I'm like St. Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 5. He says, "I am an ambassador for Christ, God making his appeal to you through me." And he says, "Please come back and repent and be one with God again." You guys are the same thing, man. This is Pope Francis, one of his biggest messages, you know, we summarize a little bit. One of his biggest messages to the church is that, look, this is for everybody. Being holy is not just for priests, it's not just for nuns, praying is not just for religion teachers, but this is for everyone. This spreading that mission I just talked about is for everybody. You know, I like to try to make the analogy between the military and like sports teams and the church. And just so you guys know that at the lowest level is when the mission really gets carried out. You know, we can raise up, we can become colonels and generals. Colonels and generals make the strategy that wins war, but who's that guys that actually do it? The privates, right? The guys on the ground that are actually going in, kicking in doors and blowing up trenches and doing all this, like, that's you guys. And just like that's your responsibility now, you can't just look at the generals and just be like, they'll go fight the war, because then what happens? They make the strategies and they're doing the leadership, they're doing their thing, but they're doing their role, but are you doing yours? Because if you guys just sit at home and don't go out and train yourselves and prepare, what's going to happen? Yeah, the mission's not going to be fulfilled, right? We are not going to accomplish the mission. The church is the same way, gentlemen. That, like, look at Pope Francis as like the chief of staff of the army. You know? But he's the guy that we want to go down and kick down doors and do all this different stuff. That's not how it works. You interact with people each and every day the way that Pope Francis can't. Just like the chief of staff of the army can't fight in the battle each and every day. It's our job. We are the ground soldiers. We are the ones that are supposed to be out here carrying it out. When we leave Mass, It's like leaving that patrol base and go out on a mission. You're preparing to go out and execute something, to live your life in a certain way that brings other people back to God. And the reason why the church is in such a divot is not because of, we want to look up. We always want to look up and be like, it's the church, it's the priests that are doing this, and the bishops, and the pope stinks. We always want to blame everybody up, right? Just like you guys will want to do eventually too. You know what I mean? The army's messed up, we're not accomplishing mission because of up. And sometimes it is, don't get me wrong. But within the church, we never want to look in. We never want to look in the mirror and say, all right, how would the Catholic Church be better if I didn't do this right now? How would the Catholic Church be better if I was living my life in this way as opposed to this way? If I was actually doing what the church asked me to do. Because if the church had, I'm telling you, if the Pope, no matter who the Pope was, if he had 1 billion really holy people that he was leading, his job would be a lot easier, right? Even if it could be a weak Pope. I mean, one of us could be Pope. And look, we're some goons. You know what I'm saying? We could put just a regular dude up there as Pope. And if he was leading 1 billion really, really holy people striving to live their life as God's calling them to live, his job wouldn't be that hard. The church wouldn't get that messed up. But we just want to rely on Father Cotter. I could come and just be like, no, it's just Father Cotter's responsibility. I could have come here when we started doing this. I had a lot of freedom, you know, like how do you want to do the faith formation? I could have come in like, that's Father Cotter's responsibility. Whatever he wants to do and talk about, that's fine. You know, and just like put it all on everybody else. But what are we doing? What are we doing, guys? How are you going to train yourself? Just like you got to train for war. That's exactly what it is. You know, 1 Peter 4 says that the devil, your adversary, your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, lurking for somebody to destroy. Looking for somebody to devour. And it says, resist him, standing firm in your faith, for you know that your brothers and sisters around the world are experiencing the same temptation, the same struggle. Are you done talking? About like 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Then we're going to get the stuff there. So think about that, guys. Like, you'll hear people talk about it all the time, and I love it, but I hate it. But you'll hear it at a lot of like Catholic men's conferences, Christian men's conferences. They'll be like, "We're in a battle, we're in a battle," and they always quote that scripture. But the thing that kills me about that is that they don't take the lessons you learn from preparing for battle, from preparing for this, from basic training. And what is your basic training for your soul? You now know what your basic training for yourself is as a soldier, but how are you going to prepare yourself to live a life that's going to lead you to heaven? Because I'm going to be honest with you, that's harder than living a life that's going to make you a good soldier. It is. I've done both. I've done spiritual training and I've done physical training. I've done soldier training. And I'm telling you that the spiritual training is the hardest stuff I've ever done in my life. Giving stuff up, changing who you are, changing your heart, offering that over to God, that's the hardest thing you ever do in your life, and that's why you'll find some people that don't do it. So I'm going to end with one of my favorite quotes. Then we're going to pray, and we're going to go to Mass. My favorite quote is G.K. Chesterton says that the Christian life has not been tried and found wanting. It has not been tried and found that it was not enough for people. There's never been anybody that has tried it and has been like, no, like that just didn't fulfill me. I'm talking truly tried it. He said, but it's been found difficult and left untried. So what he's saying is that the Christian life, following Jesus and letting him really transform your life and your heart, has never been tried by somebody and then they found that it wasn't worth it. But he said it has been found very difficult, very challenging, and many people have left it untried. And that's what you have to decide. Are you going to be the man that's going to step up and be like, I'm going to do this and pursue this in my life, knowing all these saints and seeing all these people who have done the same and have no regrets and live happy and joyous lives? Lives of purpose and passion? Or are you going to settle for the mediocrity that most of the world settles for? All right, let's close with prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for making us man made in your image. Help us to know ourselves, to understand the Bible better, to understand you better, to open our hearts. We ask you to come in and transform our lives, transform everything about us. Show us the ways that we're holding back and whatever is keeping us from you. Help us to add in the good habits in our lives that you want us to have, and help us to always grow in love and faith for you. We ask all this in Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Two people to read and two people to bring up the gift.